So, what happens when a decades-long shadow war just stops being a shadow? Well, it explodes into the open, pulling an entire region and maybe even the world right to the brink. In this explainer, we're going to break down the dizzying chain of events between the US, Israel, and Iran. We'll try to make sense of how we got here and what on earth could happen next.
We're going to start right in the middle of it all in the immediate aftermath. This isn't some military base, it's a neighborhood. What you're looking at is a quote from a correspondent on the ground, witnessing the raw, terrifying reality of a ballistic missile strike in the Israeli town of Beit Shemesh.
The scene is just one of total chaos and devastation. But here's the thing you need to understand. This attack wasn't the start of the story. No, it was a response. It was a devastating act of revenge for something that happened just one day before. And this is just brutal. The missile didn't just hit a building. It punched right through a bomb shelter, the one place you're supposed to be safe. 9 civilians were killed in that collapse. And reports from the ground say the warning sirens gave people almost no time to react. As rescue teams are still digging through all that rubble for the missing, the question everyone is asking is, yeah, how did we get here? How do we get from a very tense but, mostly contained conflict to direct missile strikes on civilian towns? To answer that, we have to rewind the clock just 48 hours. The event that lit the fuse was a massive, and I mean massive, coordinated air assault. It was a joint operation by the United States and Israel that struck directly at the heart of the Iranian regime. Now, this wasn't just any military strike. You have to understand this was a full-on decapitation attempt. The U.S. president claimed that 48 of Iran's absolute top leaders were killed, including the man who had ruled the country for over 3 decades, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But an operation like this, it's never without cost. Washington had to confirm the deaths of 3 U.S. soldiers, the first American casualties to be acknowledged in this new open phase of the fight.
Over in Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu didn't just take responsibility in a message to his nation. He basically framed the attack as the fulfillment of a 40-year personal mission to strike what he called the terrorist regime.
So back in Tehran, you can just imagine the shock, the confusion, but the regime scrambled to project stability. An interim council was formed almost immediately, and their very first public message was one of absolute, unwavering revenge. And that's when the war of words really kicked into high gear. You had the U.S. president warning of a response with a force never seen before, while on the other side, Iran's new interim government declared that vengeance wasn't just a plan, it was a right, and they promised to leave their enemies desperate. And these weren't empty words. They acted on that promise and fast. Beyond the missile that hit Beit Shemesh, others fell on Kuwait and the UAE, causing more deaths. U.S. military bases across the entire region were targeted. And out in the waters of the Gulf, the U.S. reported destroying 9 Iranian naval vessels and their headquarters. The conflict was just spreading like wildfire. And the impact of all this just rippled across the globe almost instantly, exposing these deep, passionate divisions over the Iranian regime. Seriously, the reactions could not have been more different. On one side, you have absolute fury. In Karachi, Pakistan, thousands of demonstrators tried to storm the U.S. consulate. The clashes that followed were violent and deadly, leaving 9 people dead. For them, this attack was seen as an assault on the entire Muslim world. And then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, pure jubilation. In Paris, Iranian expatriates and opponents of the regime flooded the streets to celebrate. For them, the death of the supreme leader wasn't a tragedy. It was a chance for liberation, a sign that, as they chanted, help is on the way. But look, this conflict isn't just about missiles and politics. It has immediate consequences for the global economy. And the absolute focal point of that fear is this tiny little strip of water, the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical economic choke points on the entire planet. Get this, about 20%, 1/5 of all the oil traded on the planet has to squeeze through this tiny strait, which is right on Iran's doorstep. If Tehran decided to close it down in retaliation, economists are warning the impact on energy prices and the entire world economy would be, and I'm quoting here, brutal. So where does all this leave us? Well, with both sides having landed major blows and both vowing to continue, we are in a dangerous and highly unpredictable stalemate. Let's take a look at how military analysts are sizing up the whole situation.
Analysts say the military power of the US and Israel is incommensurable. That's a fancy way of saying it's completely overwhelming. The big unknown there is, will they press that advantage to try and dismantle the regime entirely? On Iran's side, the leadership has been literally decapitated, causing what experts are calling a temporary paralysis. So the most pressing question is, who is actually in charge right now? And meanwhile, Iran's allies in the region, groups like Hezbollah, they've been weakened by other conflicts, which raises a serious question. How much help can they actually be?
You know, for years, this has been a conflict fought through proxies, through cyber attacks, and covert ops, all in the shadows. But now, with direct strikes on leaders and on cities, the crucial question remains, is this just a temporary violent escalation, or have the rules of engagement been permanently rewritten, pulling a decades-long shadow war out into the light for the entire world to see?